Good afternoon, this is Danny Prater. Once again, I'm going to make a supplemental video on the Naval Correspondence formatting because this agreement that I'm going to go over looks pretty good, but once you print it out, you can tell that it doesn't quite line up perfectly and that there's something going on in the formatting of this agreement. So let's take a look at it and see what actually is going on with this agreement right here. And the best thing to do when you first open up the video is, or open up a Word document, is to hit the hidden character tab right in this section here. And you can tell that there's some spaces that have been added in before the word between, and before the word and before commanding officer and stuff, because somebody is trying to force this agreement to be centered, and it's not working out. So a lot of times when you're cutting and pasting from a PDF document into Word, there will be a lot of formatting issues that will prevent this from lining up the way that you want it. So obviously the first thing I would do is I would turn off the auto formatting, and you can do that under File, Options, go in here to somewhere in here, proofing, auto correction, just turn it off there. And then the other thing you might want to do, if you go to page layout here and you go to the page setup, go right here, you can see that the margins should be set at 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, and 1 inch, and these are not set at 1 inch. And it's probably because they've taken a PDF document and converted it over into Word, and so it's messed things up. Let's go ahead and correct it really quick. Okay, so we have 1 inch top margins, 1 inch on each side. Everything else looks good. I'd hit OK. One of the other things you're going to see is I would turn on the ruler up here as well, because the ruler is going to allow you to see these various tab stops that are in here, and that's going to, every time you hit the tab button, and they're in different locations throughout each paragraph. So just hit Control A, and then once you hit Control A, go into these the paragraph grouping, go into the tab section here, and even though it does not show any tab stop positions right here, and go ahead and hit clear all. When you do, the little word all is going to pop up underneath there. You want to see that. And then you want the default tab to be 0.25, not 0.5, and then hit OK. This will fix a lot of things. Then what you're going to have to do in this document especially is I need to go back through here and get rid of all these additional spaces that are preventing the document from lining up correctly. And then one of the other things is you can see that the indentation is set in weird positions. Let's go ahead and highlight this whole section and fix the indentations back to where it should be. And even over here, it's off. And there's a space after the word between. I want to get rid of that. I want to get rid of all these additional spaces. Very important. You're never going to get your document to line up properly, and it's always going to look slightly funky. So then we'll go ahead and take the section we want, come up here to the Home tab button, center, and now it's perfectly center. You'll notice in this document there's some other auto formatting things going on in the header. We want to go ahead and delete those as well. And this, I'm not an expert by any means, so getting rid of all this stuff can be a challenge. But once you figure it out and you get rid of it, it's going to make your life about 1,000 times easier. But I know there's stuff in here. Okay, now we've gotten rid of everything in there. Oh, the other thing we got to do just try to get things lined up. This is not how you abbreviate U.S. Naval Hospital, Yokosuka. I don't even know what the abbreviation is. I'll let admin work it out amongst themselves. I do know that the serialization portion go about 5.5 on the ruler. Line everything up and nice and pretty. Make everybody happy. There. And then let's add a space after it. So I'm going to cover a couple things in this document that I did not cover in the previous video in order to make your life better. Some of this stuff I already talked about. One of the things is everything isn't quite lining up exactly the way that you want it to line up. A couple ways you can fix that, and I don't personally am not a fan of all these little extra spaces. So a great feature that the find and replace feature that Word has is pretty good. It is in the upper right hand corner where it says replace. If you click this button right here, and it says what do I want to find and what do I want to replace it with. A lot of times when I have a document and maybe it's from Naval Hospital Guam and I want to switch it to Naval Hospital 29 Palms, I can go in here, I could type in Guam up here, replace with 29 Palms, and I can fix the entire document really quick. In this case, I want to get rid of all these spaces. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to hit the space button 4 times. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to leave replace blank, replace with, and I'm not going to type anything in there, and I'm going to hit replace all. Bam. When I did that, it got rid of a lot of extra spaces that I've had in the document that I no longer want in the document. So now 2 ways to line up all of these items right here for the Word to make sure it's lined up perfectly. There's 2 ways you can do this. You can either tab it over twice and that's going to line it up perfect. Another option that you have is to take the section that you want and move the highlight the entire subject, take the bottom indentation, move it over 2.5, and you want the top to be back this right here. That's because there's an extra space in there. So now this is going to make your subject perfect every time, and I could potentially, if I wanted to, keep typing and I wouldn't have to change the tabs. So it's a great feature, and it makes the subject line up perfect. I'm going to go ahead and highlight it. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to come down here to my header and delete it out. Insert the correct one. Take off the additional space. So a lot of this information you might already know, but I wanted to add it in there. Adding these tab stops and these indentations, you can do that right over here in the tab stop. So you can add a left tab, a right tab, a center tab, just all kinds of different things you can do. I personally am not a fan of it, but if it makes your life easier, go for it. This will line everything up exactly where you want it to be lined up. So we want 1 space after the reference. You can see what I'm doing here. There, that lines it up. So there's a couple of ways of doing it. I'm going to go ahead and just, since we're here, I'm going to go ahead and correct this entire document really quick because it'll only take me a second to do. Okay, so I have this lined up, and I'm noticing there was a lot of extra spaces in here. So what I'm going to go ahead is I'm going to go ahead and delete these spaces. Now, there's some extra spaces here. I don't necessarily know if these are needed right off the get-go. I'm going to go ahead and delete them. And the rule for Naval Correspondence, if you do not have two complete lines on the next page, then you need to move the entire paragraph down. So because there's only 1.5 lines here, I need to move paragraph B all the way down, paragraph 2B all the way down to right there. And so as I'm working through this document, I'm just looking at it really quick. They've gotten rid of the period there. I'm going to get rid of that little space there, and they've abbreviated the word military working dog. But further down in the agreement, they're using the word military working dog. So if you abbreviate it earlier in the paragraph, like right here, what you want to do is you want to get rid of the word and just use the abbreviation from there on instead of continuing to use it. In the very first reference that they are referring to is reference E. Since it's the very first reference that's used in the support agreement, this should be reference A. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch this to reference A. I'm going to come back to my references, and E, I'm going to take this, I am going to Control X, cut it out. I'm going to come up to A, and I'm going to Control V and bring it in right there. Then I will take what was reference A, I'm going to cut it out, and I'll just paste it in to where E is, because the agreement should go in order. That's better right there. So moving down the document, they're using the numbers 48 hours. If it's less than 9, you're going to write it out, or a single digit, you would write out the number. But if it's more than 1 digit or more than 10, you're just going to write in the number. Then moving along, they missed a tab indentation right there. So I'm going to go ahead and add that in. And this is the first time they're using the abbreviation GSA. So GSA needs to be spelled out, and then we need to put GSA here in parentheses. And I'm wondering if they're using GSA further in this document somewhere else. And they are. They're using it right here. So this, I'm going to go ahead and copy that. I'm going to come back up. I'm going to come back up to where they initially wrote GSA. And I'm going to paste it in right here. So now it'll say General Services Administration GSA parentheses. Now where they've wrote out the word GSA, because we've abbreviated it earlier in the agreement, I can go ahead and get rid of that and just use the acronym or the abbreviation for GSA. And you can see that because I'm using the hidden feature key, you can see after they've added space, tab, which is going to mess the alignment up ever so slightly. And then there's some extra spaces in here. We want to go ahead and get rid of those as well. I just like to get rid of all the extra spaces. And there's an extra space right there. You don't know that there's an extra space there unless you have the hidden character feature turned on. And then here they've had 3 spaces after the D. I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that. Tab it over. 2 spaces after a period. 1 space after parentheses. Just like that. So let's go ahead and continue to work through this doc. I'm going to go ahead and try to make this video as short as possible so nobody gets bored with the agreement. Okay. HIPAA needs to have a period after it, not underlined. You know, that was covered in the previous video. I'm going to go ahead and add it right here. Point of contact, but they have POCs, so they did not use the abbreviation here, POCs. They did not put it in parentheses directly following it. So we're going to go ahead and correct that as well. So we've got points of contact, POC, we'll go POCs. And then we're going to go ahead and continue on. Not really a fan of how this looks. It's just not formatted very good. So we're going to go ahead. Let's go ahead and do this. And you might have just noticed that they're using some auto formatting. I think this looks better when we're talking about cleaning it up. Costa Japan. And there, that looks a little bit better. Looks cleaner altogether. But we had some auto formatting going on, and we don't like auto formatting because auto formatting is messing us up. But it's okay for the auto formatting of this one. I don't think anyone would say anything because it's going to look correct. Because if you look up here in your ruler, at the 0.25 is where they have the very first letter is going to line up, which is the A, and then the second one is going to go here. So it's fine. You could leave it. Really doesn't matter. But usually, auto formatting can be very challenging, and I didn't want to do that. There's some kind of hyperlink in here. There's a couple email addresses. And this is DSN. DSN overseas in Japan has an area code of 315. So just like this is a DSN. DSN's written here, but it's not written here. Let's go ahead and make it consistent by writing in DSN. I'll add a space in there. That way we got some consistency. This is not a DSN number right here, so I'm not going to put anything there. I'm going to continue down. Effective period here, 5 years. 5 years is spelled out because it's one digit. Continuing down. The years, they use MOU here. The MOU/MOA. We don't need it. Let's get rid of it. Okay. Got some extra spaces here. I'm going to get rid of them. Navy Medicine West is NMW, not NavMed West. So that's abbreviated correctly. Continuing down. Extra spaces. It's killing us. It's fine. Okay. I think that will work right there. And add a date in there. I don't think that the Naval Correspondence Manual covers that. Let's go ahead and just put in a date here, because if we don't put in a date, they won't date it. And it's effective from the date of the last signature, so we'll never know when it was signed. So adding a date is a good idea, because it reminds everyone to add a date. Even though technically when it's serialized and it's signed and it goes back to admin at the very top, they should stamp the date right here. Most admin sections don't do that. Okay, that looks better with a date. We'll give it some extra spacing right here. Okay. Page 4. Let's take that. It's Times New Roman 12 font. This will default to Arial or some other font that we don't use. Okay, so that was this document. That was this agreement in a nutshell. They did a pretty good job on it, but one of the common things that we see is having to move down a paragraph and to start on the second page if you only have 2 lines. I hope this helps some of you guys out, and it'll definitely make my life easier. Thanks for watching.